The number one podcast. I am your host, Coach Jake. Welcome, number one podcast, guys. So what's up, Marco? Happy to see you. Canada in the house. Ooh, we got Josu Os from Brazil. What's up, man? Thank you, sir. Happy to see you. We got Canada, we got Brazil. Who else is in here, man? We got all kinds of people. International. I'm hearing more from the international crowd than I am from the domestic. But hey, I'm just happy to hear from you guys. I hope you're well. I hope you enjoyed the show yesterday. I'm actually here 2 days in a row. Had a little bit of respite on my schedule. So I try to podcast every day. I really do, but it's difficult sometimes. Today, I wanted to talk on something that I touched on briefly yesterday that I think is super duper important, super relevant to this audience. And it is self defense oriented, but it is what I call mental self defense, right? Mental self defense, right? What's up, Everlasting Jiu Jitsu? Happy to see you. So, first of all, wherever you're from, let me know in the chat or anything, any questions you have, any comments, any agreements, disagreements. I'm an open book. Just shoot them out there. Happy to talk to you. Yeah, so give me a shout out. Also, I would like to know, what do you think? What do you consider? So mental self-defense. I actually own that URL. I put a bunch of my old writings on there. You can go to mentalselfdefense.com. Check them out. It's a book. Basically, I took some of my older books and I posted them up there for free. So you can go through and browse instead of buying the books. Just go browse them. It is nicer to have. I like books. I like having it in my hand, but you go check those out for free. But I also, mental self-defense was the name of my old radio show. I don't know how many of you, I don't even know if you know who I am. I'm Jake, Coach Jake Shannon, founder of Scientific Wrestling, inventor of the Mace Bell, creator of the first reverse mortgage consultancy, master of science financial engineering, 10x certified coach, mentor, and speaker. What else? Father, loving husband, family man. I don't know. That's who I am. But I used to have a radio show. Oh, I'm a former, I was a candidate for U.S. Congress, chaired the Libertarian Party of the state of Utah. What else, man? I did a lot of crazy shit. And I had a radio show. I was a talk radio host on the third oldest talk radio show or talk radio station in the country, K Talk. It was in Salt Lake City, and I did that for 3 years. It was a really fascinating experience, fantastic experience. I had many fantastic guests. Spoke to Jesse Ventura. You could see that if you go to Number One Ninja, and it's spelled like No1.ninja. That's the URL that has a lot of my old podcasts. You can go scroll through on the YouTube or whatever. Had interviews with Jesse Ventura, with Chris Novoselic, the bassist from Nirvana, a lot of really cool people that I was able to speak to on that show. But my old radio show's name was Mental Self-Defense Radio. Okay. So I'd love to hear from you guys, not only where you're from, but I'd like to also hear, like, what's your definition of mental self-defense? Because I am going to expand upon what I mean when I say that and why I use that as a brand, basically because I'm trying to do a lot of what I've done with scientific wrestling, take some knowledge that might not be known and make it available to people because it is more relevant than ever. Just like all of the fantastic grappling tricks and secrets and techniques and strategies from the old catch as catch can that I spent so much time learning, and putting in a format so you can learn it. Mental self-defense is really that same thing. And I'm sorry, I've got a bit of a nasal thing. I had a smoothie and it seems to be affecting me. So I'd love to hear from you now. Oh man, we already got some comments. We got a Facebooker, Brian Hutchinson. What's up? Nice resume. Has preserved you, obviously. I'm not sure, but yeah, thank you. Okay. And then let's go here. We got Everlasting Jiu Jitsu says, thanks, bro. Love the content you put out. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Rilla Wolf Wrestling says, slight update. Don't know if you remember, but I asked if there was any catch tournaments in LA. Lo and behold, Josh Brett is hosting one in the OC. Yeah. So I posted that on, so that's on Instagram for those of you on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and LinkedIn. Yeah, I posted on my Instagram. You can go to @Scientific Wrestling on Instagram, and I think he calls his organization the American Catch Wrestling Association, or something like that. So check that out. You'll see ACWA logo, and it has the details. He has an Eventbrite, so you can join. Scientific Wrestling Canada, Marco. I'm going out on a limb. He's answering my definition. Mental self-defense is saving you from your negative self. Nope. Well, maybe, but no. So mental self-defense is not a like a self-esteem thing, but it will lead to self-esteem. Right? So mental self-defense is the art, like physical self-defense is the art of protecting your physical well-being. Mental self-defense is the art of protecting your mental well-being. Okay, so maybe you're right in that regard. Maybe that is a benefit of mental self-defense. Okay, but that's not a defining characteristic. It's more of a benefit. So here's where I'm going to go on further. So there's been some things that have served me very well. Yesterday, I went on and on about divine discontent, about the myth of happiness and divine discontent. I don't want to regurgitate all that because I already went off yesterday. And dude, trust me, like I get fired up. I had no caffeine yesterday. Hadn't had it for 3 days. Had no food. I was on a juice fast, and I was fired up yesterday. I would recommend go back, go on YouTube if you can find yesterday's show. Yeah, and it's on Facebook too, on my personal Facebook. It's on where else? I don't know. I have it everywhere. It's on the Scientific Wrestling Facebook too. It's on the Scientific Wrestling Instagram. You might have to scroll back a bit. Let's see. Everlasting Jiu-Jitsu. Moorfield, West Virginia. Oh, hey, welcome, dude. West Virginia. Mental self-defense is being mentally aware enough to recognize situations and being able to avoid them before they pop off, and also being mentally prepared to defend yourself. Okay, so that's more like, in my opinion, situational awareness and a self-defense, physical self-defense. Mental self-defense is the art of protecting your own mind. It's protecting you from being manipulated psychologically, financially, all of those kind of things, right? So it's different than physical self-defense. I hope that makes sense. Now, I was talking about divine discontent and yesterday, and talking about some of the things that I've been able to, predict or prophesize or whatever the hell you want to call it. And all of it comes from this study of the things that I believe comprises mental self-defense, and what I really try to get people to adopt. Okay. And what I really tried to push through my mental self-defense radio show and my writings, my books. So you may only know me through producing grappling content, or you may only know me through producing fitness protocols like the Mace Bell and Mace Bell strength training. And you may only know me from my work with Grant Cardone. You may know me. I don't know how you know me. You may know me from my work for the Liberty Movement. I don't know. Okay. But they're all connected and they're connected through this idea of mental self-defense. Okay. Everlasting Jiu-Jitsu says, makes total sense. I like the idea of that. I'm about to lose service, so hopefully you post this live to your page. I definitely want to hear what you say. Yeah, so I do record. These are all being recorded, and they're permanent on all the platforms. I am on all platforms. I think my total reach in terms of followers across all platforms, it's over 100,000 But you could go find me on YouTube, Twitter. It'll be here on Instagram, Facebook, all those different places. So here's the deal: mental self-defense. It's, again, when I say scientific wrestling, so what is scientific wrestling? Scientific wrestling is the sum of my research and my efforts to best share that research to improve the lives of people I know through grappling. Okay. And scientific wrestling, for example, is truly a hybrid grappling style, the fundamental core base of which is catch as catch can wrestling with some Greco-Roman, particularly on the stand-up, some folk style, particularly Wade Chalice's pinning, and the catch is really a lot of Billy Robinson, Carl Gotch, Fujiwara, and a little bit of Gene LaBelle, and then of course a sensibility and a respect for jiu-jitsu, but we don't. It's more knowing how to defend and attack jiu-jitsu and not really implementing their strategies. That's scientific wrestling. Okay. So do you understand? It's comprised of these things and held under this umbrella I call scientific wrestling. Okay. So here is the crux of mental self-defense. My research on how to survive and thrive in the modern world. Okay. There is a lot of manipulation, and there is a lot of distraction, and there is a lot of excuses and low standards. I don't know how else to say it. Okay. Jonathan Renault, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, just purchased your Catch Wrestling Takedown DVD from BJJ Fanatics. Good intro to Catch as Catch Can. Loving it so far. Thanks, dude. You really should consider coming out to our camps. We just released the schedule for our two-day camps and certification program, the Accelerator Camps. You can go to Coaching Catch. Let me just throw this up for him because I believe he was on YouTube. Yeah, there we go. Oh, no, he's on Facebook. So that said, I want you to understand what is the core of mental self-defense. Okay. So, Justin says, or Jonathan says, I 100% pronounced it right. Thank goodness. I torture everybody's names on here, and I don't mean to. I wish I knew, but at least I got yours right. So, so what's up, Sleepless Siren? What's up, B Christian 48? Happy to see you, Matt the Mutant. So mental self-defense. What is it? Okay. So mental self-defense, the very first, I'll just give you a story, the story of my journey. Okay. I'll give you the story of my journey because this is how I got to where I am. I am the author of over a dozen books. I've run for Congress. I have a master's in financial math. I am a serial entrepreneur that has taken multiple companies to over $1 million in revenue. I've sold companies that I've founded, sold my share, and so, and I've predicted many important things. Most importantly, I think I recently, most relevantly, predicted lockdowns in my book Anomaly, which I published in 2009. And if you go to mentalselfdefense.com, there's a chapter that I published there. It's called Medical Fascism and Learned Helplessness. And honestly, dude, it totally predicted the world we're in. It's pretty fucking uncanny. And the reason I wrote was so that I could have a copyright date that proved that I predicted these things. Tea Party, I predicted that it would be taken over and completely neutered. It was a great protest, anti-tax protest party that got infiltrated by the establishment neoconservative big government Republicans and turned into a vehicle for them instead of protesting tax, right? I predicted that with my book Teocon, right? Neocon, Teocon, you see. And then Endonomics, really the prophecy still is unraveling, but it's pretty much on track. endonomics, the end of the United States as we know it. And I talk about mechanics of inflation, deflation. I talk about derivatives. I talk about debt and how all that really is going to lead to the demise of the United States. And I give a date between 2025 and 2030. I wrote that in 2011, over 10 years ago, pretty much on track. Why? Why am I able to see these things? Why did I predict that scientific wrestling would be an important thing? Why did I know that the mace belt would be a thing? Why? Okay, here is the thought processes. This, I believe, is a reproducible thing, and I want to share it with you. Okay, I hope this is okay with you guys, that I share it with you. If it's okay, throw me a number one. It's that finger, the number one finger, not this finger, this finger. You can, if you give me that finger, I know that you're not happy. But if you like what you're hearing, give me a number one, okay? So mental self-defense. Again, go over to mentalselfdefense.com. I get into kind of the weeds, and some of it can get a little abstract, academic, a little wonky, but it's well sourced and argued. But I'll give you the conversational one. DJ Jamilchan or D Milchan, I'm sorry if I'm messing your name up, says, I have all your DVDs at BJJ Fanatics. Much love from the Netherlands. Dude. I have Dutch in my blood on my mom's side. I'm like mostly Dutch. So hey, that's awesome. Love the Netherlands. Appreciate that, man. We got Canada, Netherlands, Brazil, West Virginia. Where else are you guys coming from? Anyway, so here is the juice. Here is the important stuff as to what is mental self-defense. Okay. So what's up, Philip? Thank you so much, brother. Yeah, give me a number one like Philip did in the chat if you're digging this. Mental self-defense. When I was a young man, I wouldn't say I was poor, but I was the lowest you could get in middle class. Okay. My parents both blue collar, great people, worked their asses off. My mom was one of 13 kids on a farm. My dad kind of came up poor and Mexican in Denver, and both of them, you know how that goes. You just kind of stay in that class where you were born. I was born to that. My parents divorced when I was 4. A lot of turmoil, a lot of moving around, not a lot of stability, a lot of volatility for me growing up. Step families had some abuse, physical abuse from an alcoholic stepfather. I mean, I never talk about this shit, by the way, because I am not interested in any fucking pity. That shit, fuck that shit. I personally believe you have 2 choices when confronted with trauma. You either use it as a crutch and an excuse, or you use it as fuel and fire to fight, something to fight. And that's what I've done my entire life. By the time I'm 10, I ended up nearly dying from gangrene poisoning from a botched appendectomy. So that was my first exposure to be skeptical of authority, in particular medical authority, if that makes sense. The big reason why I was from the get-go like, this is bullshit, all the lockdown, all the COVID shit, I'm like, bullshit. And the fact that I have a mathematics master's allowed me to really look at the data and research and understand this is bullshit, man. The only guy really, my hero in that, and he got silenced early on, was John Ioannidis. Brilliant man. I would recommend you guys find out more about him. He's a statistician and an epidemiologist at Stanford. Brilliant man. John Ioannidis. I think it's Ioannidis. Hope that's right. Anyway, Stellar Steven, let's see what we got here. Oh, yeah, he gave me a number one. Thank you, Stellar Steven. So, yeah, let's see here and make sure I'm not missing any comments. Anyway, mental self-defense is the sum of my experiences. So I grow up, have some illnesses, a lot of volatility, some trauma. nearly die of gangrene poisoning from a botched appendectomy. 5 years later, I get diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a form of cancer I go through. I'm 15 years old. I go through chemotherapy and radiation, and it sucked. I was 6'1" and 160 pounds when I started at 15 years old. I was very athletic, had my black belt already. I mean, it was in Taekwondo, but still, I was very athletic as a kid, and went from 6'1", 160 pounds to 117 pounds. So you guys bitching and moaning about your weight cuts, get down to like Auschwitz fucking weight, dude. That was a bitch. And I came back from it. Okay. Now, through that comeback, all the way up until my cancer and the cancer treatment. The cancer, I never even fucking noticed. It was the treatment that was like fucking awful. Which again, with regards to medical stuff, I hate keeping coming back, but it's very relevant to today. I would love Western medicine's diagnostic power, and I fucking hate their prescriptions. Do you know what I'm saying? What they prescribe to solve what they find with the diagnostics. The diagnostics are second to none. Use them. Be very skeptical about the prescriptions that they offer to you, whether it's surgeries or medicines or pills or pharmaceutical bullshit. So that's it. I'm about 20 years old. I had been like a Nancy Reagan say no to drugs kid all the way up until my cancer. And then I was at that point, I became pretty nihilistic. I was like, fuck this shit. Why would God do this to me and stuff? This is also when I stopped being Catholic, and I got real heavy into drugs. And thank God I never did anything in like the heroin or any of that shit. But I got heavy into acid, weed, all that kind of stuff, like a lot, like a lot. And it broke me mentally. All the stress of my childhood and then all of that, I started having some like problems, mental problems. And I went to this counselor because I was going to the University of Colorado Boulder, and that was bullshit. I was like, okay, this is not helping me at all either. So I was like, psychologist, psychiatrist, all this fucking authority shit doesn't work. I'm no better for it, right? At that time, I was reading a lot because I was doing so much drugs and looking for a way to justify it. I was reading a lot of what were known as the beat poets, guys like Jack Kerouac, William Ginsburg, Naked Lunch guy, what's his name? William Burroughs. And they kept talking about Buddhism. And so I was fascinated with these ideas, and I was reading about them. And I stumbled onto Zen Buddhism. And I had also, because of my martial arts, read a little bit about Zen Buddhism, right? MJB Traveler, dude, thank you for the badge, bro. That is very nice of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support. So I went and I was looking for how to get into Zen. And I was at the University of Colorado Boulder, and there was nothing in Boulder. And Denver back then was like a cow town. Like we're talking 92. Okay. Fortunately, my sociology professor at the time, his name was Len John Pinto, longtime friend of mine. He just passed away a couple of years ago. May he rest in peace. One of the first people, the foundation of mental self-defense, to me, super relevant in today's age, which is different than when I got started, but really ended up being super fortuitous and helpful. Okay. When I got into the Zen, and now Len John Pinto, a professor of sociology at the University of Colorado Boulder, one of my professors, I was talking to him about it, and he said, hey, I've been thinking of starting a Zen practice. I know a Buddhist monk from Mount Baldy, which is there's a Zen monastery in Mount Baldy, California. His name's Koyo, and he's here in Boulder. And you know what? We need 3 people, according to the university. We need a university staff member. We need an actual religious person like this monk, and we need a student. Will you charter with us the University of Colorado Zen Society? I was like, shit, okay. Crazy enough, that is still going today. I think we chartered originally in 92. It's still going today, like 30 years later. Okay. Amazing. That was my first actual, and it's magical, right? Because when I do something that's right, it lasts forever. That's part of my legacy is the CU Zen Society. You go and you look on you can go look, hey, can I look at the charter? Go to the registrar or whatever, and my name will be on there, which is cool. To this day, still practicing, still going on. Now, what did I learn there? Okay. What did I learn at through Zen? Now, this Zen, there are two different sects, not sex X, CT, SECTS. Okay, sect. There are two different sects to Zen, largely speaking. There's the Soto, and then there's Rinzai, Rinzai, Rinzai. Okay, now, what's up, Big Steve Peasy? Happy to see you, brother. So Rinzai is the Zen that was practiced by the samurai. And fortunately, because of my interest in martial arts and whatnot, that was the style that Koyo in Mount Baldy did. And now there are subtle differences. Largely, it has to do, most of Zen centers, at least the Rinzai centers around Zazen, which is the practice of sitting. And that's just meditation, okay? Now, what I learned was this. Through Zazen, basically sitting practice, which is a group of people that sit on a zafuton, a pillow, together, and you sit there with your eyes gently open, your legs crossed, your hands folded in your lap, and your eyes open, and you just sit for a half hour, and all you do is listen to your breathing. Now, at that time, I told you I had been doing a lot of drugs, I had a lot of trauma, and I had no control over my brain, right? I was having anxiety, I was having paranoia, I was having all these problems, especially as a young man, 20 years old, right? Like the problems, like, first of all, like the idea of schizophrenia, which is not even a real disease. They've never found it in a microscope under a lab. It's just a name. Like most psychiatric fucking things, it's just a label. It's not actually medical. They've used medical language known as inkhorn terms or prestige jargon to make it sound medical when it's just not. It's a metaphor. Anyway, but the problems of it are real. Like I was paranoid. Sometimes I'd hear things that I wasn't sure if they were real or not. Like, and this spikes under stressful situations, traditionally in young men and young women when they're transitioning from moving out of the home to being independent, right? How stressful is that? You don't know how to fucking do anything. Do your laundry, pay your bills, get insurance, pay rent, hold a job, succeed. Those are nothing taught in college. And so a lot of young people get labeled with this when it's actually stress induced. And then they get put onto fucking meds and it ruins the rest of their lives. Okay. I was fortunate because I had already been on drugs and it was fucking me over. And then all the stress was fucking me over. And I had these people because I was vocal about what I was looking for with regards to Zen. Now, the Zen, this practice of sitting, and we did it 3 times a week. I'd sit for a half hour and you have to listen just to your breathing. And when you do that, you realize how much of your thoughts are actually not under your control because you, the intentional, conscious, rational decision maker says, I just want to listen to my breathing. And you make that decision and you sit there and you breathe and you breathe. And then you realize thoughts pop up. Oh, did I do my homework? Oh, this fight I had with my girlfriend. Oh, all these things pop up and you're like, fuck, man, my mind's actually like happening to me. These thoughts are not my own because, I mean, they're happening inside my head, but I don't want them to happen, right? And they could be negative thoughts too. So anyway, that was the foundation of mental self-defense, this concept I'm trying to explain to you guys, the why I named my radio show that. It allowed me to get control of my mind because I was able to focus. This practice, this training of Zazen, and I could see why it's relevant to martial arts, is it allowed me to control my thoughts. Does that make sense? You may think you could control your thoughts, but I challenge you, after this show, find a quiet room, tell nobody to bother you for a half hour, put your timer on, and sit in the room with your eyes gently opened and just listen to your breathing. Don't control it, just listen to it. And notice how many fucking thoughts come up that you don't want to hear right now. You're like, no, I'm here to listen to my breathing. That's the point I'm trying to have you understand. That's the foundation. And why I say it's relevant in today's age is because we live in this fucking ridiculously distracted world where fucking my phone is binging every other second. There's billboards, there's TVs, there's people, just constant distractions, not allowing me to maintain a focused, sustained thought. That's a problem. And we're actually being trained, whether it's happening on purpose or it's just how the world works. In like TikTok videos are 7 seconds. We're being trained to think, and some thoughts, deep thoughts that develop like cars and computers and high-tech things and negotiate complicated situations that need to be peaceful. They require more than 7 seconds of thought. Okay. So of sustained focused thought. So the fundamental basis of mental self-defense is getting control of your own mind and your focus. And that is largely through the techniques of meditation. You can use TM, transcendental meditation. You can use, I don't give a shit what it is. You can use mantras in yoga. That's a great thing to do. Those of you who have anxiety can't control your thoughts. A lot of thought is self-conversation. And you can't have two conversations at the same time, how difficult that is. A mantra is a word or a phrase you repeat over and over again. And that will allow you to stop having those other conversations. That is fundamental, but it takes practice. Lots of practice. Lots and lots of practice. You will see. Try it. Like I said, I challenge you to sit in a room for a half hour with your eyes open and listen to your breathing and try not to focus on anything else. You'll see what I'm saying, okay? You can prove this to yourself. That is the basis, right? Is being able to focus for long periods of time. Now, I've been bullshitting, so let me go to some of these comments. We've got Jonathan Renault saying, dude, I was working in the finance department at my city hall. I was basically the only one in my circle screaming against lockdowns. I was influenced by the Hoover Institution. Yeah, that's a great organization out of Northern California. I have a friend of mine, Jeffrey Rogers Hummel, who works for them. He's an economist, very, very smart guy. He's one of the guys I had on my mental self-defense radio show. He was a friend of mine. He was actually a professor of mine. Well, I never took a class with him, but he was a professor and helped me get he was one of the guys that recommended me into my graduate program. Brilliant guy. Let's see. What is the Emperor of Charlemagne on YouTube says, loving this podcast. I just switched from Facebook. Hey, dude. Awesome. Appreciate you. Disco Distance. The Tibetan monks used mantras to block impure thoughts. You're so right. Yeah. So, thanks, Justin. Good to see you, brother. So that is the basis. Okay. Now, that is typically considered like an Eastern thing. Mental self-defense is integrated. There is no East-West. It's whatever works. That's the first step. You've got to be able to get control of your thoughts, and you've got to build that mental muscle to maintain a single-minded focus for sustained periods of time. That's one, if you're taking notes. Okay. Build the muscle to sustain single-minded focused thoughts using meditation. Okay. Concentration and focus over long periods of time. That's one of mental self-defense. Okay. Mason, what's up, Mason? Hope you're doing great. I am well, my friend. Thank you so much. Number two, we're going to switch to the Western tradition of thought now. At that time, I was in college, and so I'm a vocal guy. I love to bullshit. I love to debate, not argue in the like disagree sense, more like debate, right? I enjoy learning and challenging my own thoughts with other people's ideas to see if I'm right or wrong. I was very much like a coffee shop intellectual because I never had high-level thinkers or intellectuals around me. Like I said, my parents were super blue collar. I never knew anybody that really went to college. You got it. I've always been a sharp guy. And so I could win arguments against that level. But when I went to college, I found like, holy shit, man, I'm losing all my debates. And I had to have a shift in thinking. I said, well, what if they're right? I kept thinking it was about me just being right. and being able to trick people into. But then I started realizing, well, there is actually things that are right and wrong. I'm fighting against the entire universe if I try to argue these things. I was very much falling into like Marxism and communism, which typically happens to working class uneducated people because they know how to manipulate and sell that bullshit. Well, I started having arguments with my roommate. This roommate of mine, but by the way, my college roommates were massively influential in my life. I'm very grateful. I was able to, I did well enough. So, like I said, I was always athletic and kind of a meathead, honestly, until I got the cancer. And then I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do the wrestling team I wanted to because my, Pomona High School where I went has the best wrestling team in the state. It's like legendary. I couldn't even do fucking track, which is like way easier than wrestling. I was destroyed. I was 117 pounds in chemo and radiation during my junior and senior years. It just sucked. As a result, I focused my energies on academics and I got a leadership scholarship to the University of Colorado from a very prestigious group called the President's Leadership Class. Of the like 10,000 or 20,000 incoming freshmen every year into the university, only 50 are given this scholarship and put into this leadership program, and I was one of them. Now, I'm debating with these people. Fortunately, the one guy that stayed with me forever is Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, and he's not a communist or Marxist, just a brilliant thinker. But I was losing these other arguments, especially economic arguments. And one of my roommates now runs Thrasher Magazine. His name's Michael Burnett. Brilliant guy. Funniest fucking dude I ever met. Another one of mine is a super famous tattoo artist named Dan Gilsdorf, Atlas Tattoo up in Portland. And then my other one the one that I'm going to talk about now, his name's Stan Brooks. He ended up becoming a neurosurgeon. He's a little brain surgeon at University of Madison in Wisconsin. And I would debate with him and he would always win. And I didn't understand what it was. And he had been reading Ayn Rand and he turned me on to her. And one of the things, there's many flaws in Ayn Rand's thinking that I eventually figured out like 10 years later. But she has a lot of powerful tools. So if the very first floor on mental self-defense is sustained focus over a long period of time due to the mental exercises of meditation. Number two is, and I picked this up from Ayn Rand, was the study of informal fallacies from the Greek tradition. Okay, do you guys, anybody here know what informal fallacies are? Can give me an example? Justin says the Übermensch. Yeah, well, I consider myself an Übermensch in this interpretation. Typically Nietzsche, and I agree with him, and I talked about this yesterday, that the history of mankind is largely the history of masters and slaves. And the Übermensch, or the Overman, or the Superman, offers a third alternative, and that is neither slave nor master of himself. Anyway, don't want to get off track there a bit, but anybody here know what the informal fallacies are? This is a very crucial part, as crucial as meditation to mental self-defense. The informal fallacies. Can anybody tell me one informal fallacy? Anybody tell me an informal fallacy? Going once, going twice. I'm getting no response. Okay. Go and onto your favorite search engine and type in informal fallacies. Now, it's in logic, Greek logic, but the informal fallacies are not mathematical logic, which is what a lot of like syllogism logic, like Aristotelian logic is. That's not what I'm talking about. This is like used in debate, forensic debate, things like ad hominem. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase. It's a Latin, okay, where instead of attacking somebody's argument, somebody attacks the person. So like you say, Kanye West says something like about something. And instead of evaluating whether actually what he's saying is right, separating what he's saying from the person, they say, oh, it must be wrong because it's Kanye. That's an ad hominem attack or an ad hominem fallacy. Now, there's a list of these fallacies, these informal fallacies, okay? Equivocation, right? Which is like when you use, when a term in linguistics, a term can have intention, which is not Intention, it's Intension, versus extension. Equivocation is like when a term has more than one meaning, and then you use it to kind of be a little bit of a wiggle room, right? I mean, there's a ton of these, like false dilemma. When like voting for Democrat or Republican is a false dilemma. There's actually more options, but people only think of the two options, right? False equivalency, the ludic fallacy, which is a little newer, you know. Some of these have to do with probabilities, right? I mean, there's a bunch of them. You can go. I think hasty generalization is one. I mean, there's so many, right? Magical thinking, appeal to violence or appeal to force, appeal to repetition, ignoratio elenchi, which is like irrelevant conclusion, red herrings, like ad hominem is probably the most famous. Appeal to authority, I said. Appeal to emotion, right? Or post hoc ergo propter hoc, which is like a false cause fallacy. These are very, very important because the Greeks, they differentiated, right? They had the people that they considered were concerned with the truth, and these were what a huge hero of mine. His name is Thomas Szaszz, Szaszz, author of The Myth of Mental Illness. He would call it a noble rhetorician, somebody who does rhetoric, somebody who argues things, and they're concerned with the truth and facts and helping people, versus the sophists or sophistry, which are people that use language to manipulate. Okay. So maybe you're thinking like the NLP people, or, people who are using language to not really be ethical. I mean, maybe the end result's ethical, but they're manipulative. It doesn't have to do with facts. The informal fallacies will allow you to separate out the bullshit. Okay. It is one of the most powerful tools, lenses through which to view all the media, all the data that comes your way, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So what's the first foundation? Meditation. In particular, in my recommendation is Zen of the Rinzai tradition, meditation. That's the first foundation of mental self-defense. The second would be a true understanding and ability to use informal fallacies as a lens by which to judge information projected at you. And we live in the information age, and this is absolutely crucial. So you need to be able to not be distracted. That's the first part, meditation. And two, and sustained a focused long-term thought without distraction. And two is being able to filter through the bullshit using informal fallacies. Excuse me. Now, Stellar Stevens says, did I read into Kali Yuga during Zen society? Oh, after. So I do study esoteric knowledge, in addition to more exoteric or common knowledge. But I find esoteric knowledge has a lot of nuggets. And, I find a lot of it in religion. I myself am an agnostic, but that doesn't mean I can't look to these texts and find wisdom. And here goes something that's going to probably, I don't know, either guys will resonate or not. I found wisdom in almost every religion I've looked into. I even include Scientology. There's some great shit in there. Is there some bullshit? Probably, yeah. Probably. There's bullshit in Catholicism, guarantee you that. There's some good stuff. Well, a great thing in Catholicism, because I'm a recovering Catholic, I grew up as a Catholic, was Lent. Okay. I don't buy into any of the stories or any of that kind of stuff, but like um, Lent really taught me self control because you had to give something up during Lent, right? Until Easter, man. It was like, Ash Wednesday until Easter, you had to give up something like soda or candy, and it taught me self control. Now, there's bad shit in Catholicism. I mean, we just have to look at the pedophilia, and I'm not even talking to Epstein. This is shit. This shit's been going around forever in the Catholic Church, or the Spanish Inquisition, or the Dark Ages, which was it reinforced by a lot of this and led to the separation of church state. Um, uh, Mormonism. Not saying there's good. I mean, there's some dumb stuff in there, but I really like their idea of agency. I love that, as agency is the foundation of morality. I love their social welfare system that's non-coercive that they have for members. There's great things in everything, right? In all of these. So let's see. Stellar Stevens says, oh wait, Emperor Charlemagne says, super interesting podcast. Going to eat. We'll check back later. Yeah, dude, it's being recorded. But of course, if you watch the recording, you can't interact or ask questions or comment. Stellar Steven, there's a documentary called On Meditation that I watched. Esposito, David Lynch, and others. It was interesting seeing Esposito speaking passionately about it. Okay, cool. And let's see, what's he say in that and in person. Okay, cool. So first thing is you have to meditate, because it's not about the meditation. It's about developing and strengthening the muscle to maintain single-minded focus over long periods of time. That's one. Two is the informal fallacies, so that you know how to suss out bullshit. Okay. The first level of bullshit. Once you graduate from meditation into informal fallacies, then you have to move into, so now logic, there are two factions in logic. There are two subjects, two branches, broadly speaking. Deductive reasoning, okay, which is where the informal fallacies kind of come from. And that does have to do more with syllogisms, like if A, then B, all that shit, right? Like it's actually three terms, but now, as the alternative to deductive reasoning, right? We all hear Batman and Sherlock Holmes were masters of deductive reasoning. Okay, well, that's actually not going to help you as a detective. What they were actually probably trying to say was they were masters in inductive reasoning. Okay, what's the difference between deductive and inductive? Okay, deductive follows a chain to make sure there's nothing wrong in the chain of reasoning. A lot of computer logic is that way. Okay, old computer, like logic gates. Inductive reasoning is basically statistical or probabilistic thinking. Does that make sense? So you need to understand likelihoods and probabilities and how they actually work. Now, there is a subtle point that I only learned in graduate school, and this is the idea of statistical power. It's an actual subject, okay? There is something known as a type 1 error and a type 2 error. Type 1 is a false positive. Okay, I write about this in my 2009 book, Anomaly. This is on mentalselfdefense.com. You can go read about this. But a type 1 error is a false positive. That's when your girlfriend pisses on the pregnancy stick, says she's pregnant. It's a positive reading, but it's false. A false positive. It says she's pregnant, but she's not. Right? Could suck, could freak you out, but hey, you're not pregnant. Much more dangerous and very seldom taught. And this is the second level that I think is important for everybody. You don't have to have a graduate degree in financial math and to have worked as a statistician like me to appreciate this, is a serious understanding of false negatives. And this is what statistical power it's actually a term. It doesn't mean like the power of statistics. It's statistical power is actually a small section within the study of statistics, okay? And it has to do with sussing out false negatives. A A false negative would be your girlfriend pees on the stick, and she actually is pregnant. There's actually a being inside of her, and it comes out negative. Do you understand why that's more dangerous? Because if she reads that as a negative and then smokes cigarettes and drinks booze, she could literally destroy this life. The rest of this, the kid could have had a great potential, but now has defects. Okay, let me use a different example. Type 2 would be you're in the jungle, and a type 1 would be a false positive. You hear a rustle in the leaves and you're paranoid and you think it's a tiger going to get you, but it's a false positive. It's not a real signal. And that rustle was just the wind. Sure, you had a little discomfort because you had anxiety, but there's no big deal, right? In fact, most anxiety that people suffer is not medical. It's a false positive because people have not done step 1 of mental self-defense, and that's control their thoughts. Okay. More dangerous is a type 2 because you're in the jungle and there's a rustle in the leaves and you're like, oh, it's just a rustle in the leaves and it's a fucking tiger and you're dead. Do you understand? Do you understand the importance of this? And nobody fucking talks about it. Okay. Most people who call themselves skeptics, they only concern themselves with type 1 errors, and then they call people concerned with type 2 errors conspiracy theorists. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy evidential person, like conspiracy factualist. There are conspiracies. There are things, right? Now, there's a difference, right? Like, so they'll call it pareidolia, which is a type 2 that ends up being wrong. That could be like, I look at the moon and I'm like, I see the craters and my mind imposes a meaning and says, oh, there's a man in the moon. See his face? It's not really a fucking face. Your mind's imposing that. That's called pareidolia. Okay. But there is, and statistical power studies this. And part of the problem are these is this other concept called statistical significance. So when I say statistical power and statistical significance, these are actually terms that embody a lot of equations. It's not just general terms like, I'm not equivocating like I mentioned earlier. These are very specific technical terms in statistics. Anyway, this deep understanding, and I coined a term, right? So I call it paraphenia, which is this idea of truly understanding type 2 errors and really being able to suss out what's going on. To me, this now there is a term that other people have studied, but my book, I think, is maybe the most comprehensive modern treatment. There's a guy named Marcello Truzzi, who's a sociologist, and he is dead now, unfortunately. I never got to meet him, but I quote him quite a bit in my book. And the term is anomalistics. So my book's name is Anomaly, Revolutionary Knowledge in Everyday Life. That's the subtitle. Anomalistics. You can Google it. There's a Wikipedia page. The first layer of mental self-defense is being able to sustain undistracted, single-minded focus over a long period of time through meditation, usually, right? Number 2 is the informal fallacies. Okay. Oh, Cole, what is up, Cole? Man, I love you so much, says Cole Whitty. I love you too, man. Miss you guys. Hope you and Tal are doing well. Hope to see you guys soon. I haven't seen you in forever. So now we got Austin in the house. Scientific Wrestling says, I've read Dianetics. Very interesting. Yeah, it's not a bad book. I mean, I'm not a Scientologist, but I could take the things that are good of something and disregard the rest. I'm not a Mormon, but I could take I'm not a Catholic. I'm not a Buddhist. I mean, so, Stellar Steve was talking about the Kali Yuga. I got very fascinated with some of the ideas of Hinduism. Ironically, when I was studying this book, and which led me down the rabbit hole of quantum physics, come to find out most of the main thinkers in quantum physics were Upanishad, which is a major text in Hinduism, Upanishad scholars. There's a lot of great wisdom carried in these ancient tomes, and we just get all fucked up about them. Charles Davis, what's he say? But check out what Constantine does to the Christian church with all his paganism. Okay, whatever, dude. I'm not going to get off track. Okay, I don't know. Constantine. Look, all I'm trying to say, I'm not getting into history right now. What I'm more getting into is like actual tools to use in your thinking for what I call mental self-defense. First, be able to develop a muscle in your mind that allows for sustained single-minded focus. Usually meditation, in particular rinse zen, is the best method. Two, study and know and be able to apply the informal fallacies of logic. Okay, you just look them up, man, and study them and start looking for them. And three is to start understanding anomalistics. Okay, anomalistics is the understanding of type 2 errors fundamentally. Okay, I hope that helps. Okay, Stellar Stephen, any interest in Hermeticism? Sorry if getting off track. No, Hermeticism's fantastic. Hermes Trismegistus and Thoth and the Emerald Tablet and all that shit. Yeah, very fascinating. I'm a Freemason, so most of the Masonic thinking is rooted in Hermeticism, and Hermeticism really comes up from the ancient Egyptian traditions of thinking, led to a lot of fantastic things. For those of you who don't know anything about Freemasonry, actually the second level is largely concerned with the trivium, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic, but really the informal fallacies is a big part of the trivium, right? Anyway, I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you guys like this, give me a number one, please, and tell your friends. And I want to help you guys. That's my whole life is really, this is what I can do. I can do a lot of different things, but this is what I am best at. Is taking complicated ideas, difficult ideas, esoteric and maybe obscure ideas or obtuse ideas, and making them understandable, digestible, and actionable. Okay. Now, the last part of mental self-defense, first is meditation, second is informal fallacies, third is anomalistics or understanding statistical power or type 2 errors. The last and final part that I believe is truly important is an understanding of economics. And it is such a minefield. That is the most sophisticated and difficult part. But honestly, I think the best description I ever heard of economics, and I cannot remember who said this, if it was who's the creative destruction guy? God damn it, I can't remember his name. I'm thinking Schopenhauer, Schrodner. Can't think of his name off the top of my head. But God damn, what's his name? Creative destruction. You Google it in economics, you'll find his name. And I think it was him. It might also be Hayek. There's a bunch of thinkers that have come to this conclusion. And it is really the understanding of incentives with regards to human behavior. How do incentives operate? Pleasure, pain, pride, in-group, all of these things. I hope this helps you guys. Oh, Philip gave me a number one. Thank you, dude. Appreciate it, brother. Guys, if I can help you, like I said, I've got a number of things. I'm a freak. I told you yesterday on my talk about divine discontent and the myth of happiness. I'm very a discontent person. Been that way my whole life. Doesn't mean I'm not happy. But I'm always wanting to improve. I'm always wanting to grow. I'm never satisfied. Okay. Which is good because I set big goals. That's why I've accomplished these crazy things. I am a coach. I've been a coach for since 2003, which I can't believe, almost 20 years now. And I am a good coach. You can go to No1 Coaching. It's spelled like the neon sign, No1 Coaching. Look at all the testimonials. You can go to scientificwrestling.com. Look at all the testimonials. I pride myself on my expertise and on my results. If I can help you, and primarily I do help people primarily improve their lives through fitness by grappling or mentally and financially through No1 Coaching, let me know. I'm here to help you. I do this as a service. I don't obviously get paid. I don't have sponsors here. I do this as outreach to let you guys know that you're not alone There is somebody here, somebody who's been through the fucking ringer, who has been absolutely disgusted with themselves and their life, but that is a big reason why I have success. Okay, and that you can always come back from devastating illnesses, from personal failings and mistakes. I've done it all. Okay. And you just always have to endeavor to fight and come back and be a good person to yourself and to other people. Okay. So I appreciate you. Hit me up in the DMs. If I can ever help you, I'm here to help you guys. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you next time.